Murry Mercier has a brand new show that we're launching today called Murry Off the Mic. And I am so excited to have you do that.
Okay, here we go. It's so quiet in here. Some of the most important conversations in senior living don't happen in meetings. They happen after the agenda's gone, when nobody's performing anymore. That's the space that this show lives in. Murry Off the Mic isn't polished, it's not rehearsed, it's not heavily produced. It's more interested in the people than the polish. That means if there's some pauses, if there's some silence, we're okay with that. That's where the honest stuff really shows up. The show's about people, the people of aging services, the people of senior living, but the people, not the titles. It's about what's on your mind, what got you here, what shaped the way that you see this work in aging services. Because understanding where we come from supports where we will go next. There's no prep for these conversations, but that doesn't mean there's no intention. It just means that we're not trying to control where we go with these conversations. We're just trying to be present for whatever shows up. This industry raised me, and I didn't really understand what that meant until much later in my career, and I think I'm still trying to figure that out. Early in my career, I had been trained really well in business process, just like the 12 to 15 million people attending our universities and our colleges today are getting trained just the same. I knew how leadership looked, or what it was supposed to look like anyways. I knew where leadership sat: VP, SVP, C-suite, president, CEO, board member, chairman of the board. So I was always looking up. I was always watching the people in the front of the room, the ones that were standing behind the podium, thinking, how do I get there? I want to change the world too. Then I had the opportunity to help start Aspen House. It was a small assisted living, but it was a community that me and my fellow colleagues were tasked with building from the ground up. Brand new, blank walls, empty rooms, big responsibilities. I remember after the license was done and the policies were set up and there were 15 layers of drywall on the side of the walls because we took over 5 or 6 apartments in the middle of a big independent living building, which was awesome, by the way. I had my very first all-staff meeting and I seriously thought that I nailed it. I stood at the podium. I talked about the vision. I talked about what was going to happen. I talked about how we were going to get there. It felt like a disaster. Not outwardly. Nobody walked out. Nobody threw rotten tomatoes at me standing up at the front of the room. But there was no spark. I didn't have those goosebumps that I was used to getting when I watched the leaders stand up at those podiums. There was no sense that we were really in this together. It was just me talking and the room saying, oh, okay. I walked away thinking that didn't exactly feel like leadership. Then we left that room and we got right back to work. I remember distinctly, I had 2 care associates and we were down in our apartment rooms painting the walls, some glorious shade of yellow because yellow was sunshine and that would make us happy. We were setting up the med boxes. We were building the charts from scratch because back then I was half digitized and half paper. But while we were doing those things, standing side by side, we had a lot of conversations. We had a lot of interactions. We talked about what mattered to us. We talked about our fears going into this household model assisted living that was completely different than any other assisted living that we'd ever seen. We talked about the uncertainty in trying to do that. I think we had 15 residents and 15 staff members. I think I started with 4 hours of nursing support a week. So we were nervous. But that's when it really hit me, was standing there alongside the community members of Aspen House. Leadership didn't happen at the podium. It happened in real time while we were doing the work together. The moments that mattered most weren't the meetings. They were the moments where we listened to each other. And then we came together as a community and took action because of all that listening we did.
Sure.
And that's when I learned something that I still carry with me today. Just-in-time leadership was worth more to our community than any staff meeting. And furthermore, any member of the community could step up into that leadership position. I didn't learn that lesson just once. Not long after we opened up Aspen House, our residents started to move in. And one of the very first residents, I remember her, and I will always remember her for as long as I live on this earth. Thick chart, a mile-long medical record, some of the scariest diagnosis related to memory and cognition that you can imagine in the form of Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. And yet there was still a human being striving to be vibrant, a desire to belong with a life they were trying to hold on to, just one more day of control. There were a lot of nights filled with fear sitting with that resident. Hallucinations about needing to pick the kids up from the bus stop. A constant sense that something urgent was being missed. The doctor's visits didn't fix it. None of the orders or medications fixed it. More documentation certainly didn't fix the problem. The only thing that helped was presence, was a willingness to sit and share our story with one another. I remember clear as day, more than 15 years ago, sitting in that apartment, lights low, calm energy. Sometimes we were talking. Sometimes we were crying. Sometimes we were laughing at the absurdity of the situation life had brought us. Sometimes we shared a hug or maybe some ice cream. But no matter what we did, we always knew that we'd be doing it all again the next night. That's really when it became clear to me. Care and community doesn't come from knowing what to do. It comes from the willingness to show up and be there together and figure it out together. Both of these moments with the staff and the resident, they taught me the same thing. They taught me that culture is the product of the environment. A community of belonging is the product. When staff feel seen, heard, and supported, they show up differently. When residents feel known and included, everything changes. Leadership and care don't happen in the formal moments. They don't happen behind the podium, at the all-staff meeting, at the town hall meeting. They happen in real time through presence, relationship, and belonging. That belief has shaped everything I care about in this work. That's why this show exists. I'm more interested in the pauses than I am in the perfect answers. I want to hear what you have to say when you're not performing, when you don't have the slide deck, when you haven't rehearsed your response, when you're not standing on stage or behind that podium. That's where the truth lives. If you've got a story to tell, we want to hear it. Thanks for being here. Let's talk again. My name's Murray, and this is Murry Off the Mic.